I think challenging a little bit your notion that this is something new. And it says, you mentioned that grift was at the fringe until recently, but we have had collusion in the NASDAQ market, LIBOR manipulation, options backdating. Hasn't this always been a fundamental truth that smart people always find a way to try to beat the system?
For sure. Smart people always find a way to beat the system. I think my argument is the durability of this period of time, the scope and the pervasiveness of it, and the fact that it is attached to an ideology, and that's like a big word, but I think it is an ideology, that makes it different. That's not what .com was. It's not what tulips were. That's not even what the mortgage thing was. This is really different. And that's why it dies hard. So I think it's the durability, the pervasiveness of it, and it is the, I keep using this word ideology, but it's a belief system. It's a whole belief system. It is not like smart people, there's always stuff on the fringe. But there are people who deeply believe. And that's very different. So I take that criticism, but I do want to try to differentiate it. You know, if the worst thing that comes out of this is you think, oh yeah, we've seen this before, here's another version of it. Okay, I don't think that's right. And that's why it's going to be harder to unwind and take longer to unwind. Yeah, so I think about the durability, the pervasiveness, and the belief system built around it. Yeah.
You talked about ALN in particular being subject to being the retail investors.
Yeah.
And this question is around young people, and it says, do you think young people buy into financial cult mentality because of their worry about hopelessness about the future?
Wow. That is a great question. Yeah, look, I think that's right. Yeah, I do believe that. What is, the puzzle to me, though, is not that they buy into this because of their hopelessness. The puzzle to me, frankly, is I don't understand the hopelessness. And I think that hopelessness is manufactured and foisted upon them and is enormously destructive. I mean, I think we have convinced ourselves so deeply that the world is going to hell. And it's not. And people on the left have done that with this discussion of income inequality, which I think is unrooted in reality. People on the right have done that. And the great middle is missing in action. The last 50 years have been remarkable. There have been remarkable reductions in global poverty. There have been remarkable reductions in global and income inequality. There have been remarkable improvements in child health. Environmental issues are massive and important. But the catastrophism that is everywhere is making young people hopeless. I think it's deeply, and it's making them do lots of weird things, including this. And I think it is rooted in that hopelessness. I think, and it's very hard to escape it. And it's not just the hopelessness, though, right? If Shannon, I know you, doubled your money yesterday in Kohl's, I'm going to be like, oh, wow, what am I doing working this job? What am I doing? Literally. And so it's just a reasonable response to what you're seeing in the world. And so, and that bromance thing, and I'm working on that piece now and I'm trying to finish it. It's young men, obviously we know young men are problematic. Well, and as the father of 3 daughters, I can tell you, deeply worried. So I think, I think young men are problematic, have historically been problematic, but today are particularly problematic. And this is a version of that. And the trading they're doing is nihilistic. It's nihilistic. And it's a zero-dated option. It's a levered ETF. There's no, let's figure out the future. It's literally nihilistic. And so it reinforces that nihilism. And that's why it's troubling. By the way, can I just take a quick poll? This characterization of young men in trading and finance, does it resonate with you? Do you know people like this? Yeah. Good. I think it is. I think it's big, and it is very linked to gambling and the pervasion of sports gambling. All the sports gambling, and they are very closely twinned. And by the way, the sports gambling folks have now shifted almost entirely, as some of you may know, to in-play gambling. So what does that mean? You're not betting, oh, the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl this year. That's not what's going on. Big Josh Allen fan. What's going on is I'm watching whatever. I'm watching some NBA game, and is the next three-pointer going to go in or not? That's called in-play gambling. That's where most of their revenues are now. So that's what's happening. And it's not, to me, and I know once you see something, everything looks like a nail or whatever, but that is a zero-dated option. That's a zero-dated option. That's what that is. It's the same thing. At the end of the day, will the S&P be up by 2 points or down by 2 points? Go. That's the same thing as will Steph hit it? And it has nothing to do with, do I like the Golden State Warriors or how Steph Curry's doing? Is he injured? It has no deep investigation into anything. And that is the nihilism of Bronance, I think.
So people, I think, want a little bit more on the hopeful part about what we do to destroy magical thinking.
I know. I know.
And so that was literally one of the questions was what could destroy magical thinking? And then I'd like to pair it with another question about the federal regulatory policy. Is there a role for regulation here? They say, what's been the role of Citizens United in opening up corporate control of federal regulatory policy?
Okay, so let's go there. So look, I think regulatory policy could help enormously. What would that mean? It would mean, first off, really building up the SEC, which nobody today is interested in doing, the Securities and Exchange Commission. It would mean taking a hard look at crypto, which people are doing the opposite of, which is just fully endorsing it. And there is a lot of room for regulation. Yeah, I think there's tons of rooms. Nothing like that is going to happen in the next couple of years, I can assure you. And the opposite will happen, as has been evidenced by the last 6 months. And it'll be much more pro all these things. And by the way, if you haven't paid attention to the Genius Act and the stable coins, you should pay attention. It's a really big deal. And these are just pouring fuel on this fire. And so it'll continue. But there's a huge role for regulations to play. I actually think I'm going to be, what do I know? I've already been aggressive. Why not be a little more? I think this is something that somebody like, I don't know, Pete Buttigieg or like Wes Moore could talk about. I think they could talk about it and they could try to get young people to think harder about it and make it a plank. That would be exciting. I don't know. I don't know. I gave you my best shot for how things get better, but you agree with my daughter, it's like the weakest part of the talk. So yeah, yeah, it is the weakest part.
So a couple questions about magical thinking being bigger than just in the financial markets.
Yeah.
One isn't ignoring our massive debt part of our own magical thinking, the idea that it will work its way out rather than we become Greece?
So look, I think debt is a different kind of problem. I think it's a very significant problem, and it will not work itself out very well. It's not likely to be cataclysmic. I think it's likely to be Japan. I think it's likely to be like grinding growth, and that's fine. That's what it has to be. I think it is magical thinking to think that we're just going to grow our way. Of course, the most recent version of that is there's so much AI productivity growth that we grow into our debt levels. I think it's really hard to imagine or believe. There are going to be real sacrifices. And that's the other version of magical thinking, which is there are no trade-offs. We can spend as much as we want and grow our way through it. I think that reckoning is happening. It'll continue to happen. I think magical thinking is in a lot of weird places. And now I'll, go full on. There's a lot of politics that are about magical thinking, and it is really powerful today. If we change language, we change the world. Really? Is that the way the world changes? I don't think so. If we throw out a lot of crazy ideas, the Overton window, a phrase I hate, expands and more things become permissible. So it's good to do and talk about crazy stuff because the Overton window shifts. really? Is that the way the world works? I don't think so. So I think it's a very pervasive idea that is going through politics as well as everything else. And as to the debt, I think that's right. I think that will, I'm hopeful, resolve itself in the next 15 years. Not in a very nice way, but not in a catastrophic way.
A question, going back to, you talked about Pepsi's not doing social justice work, and I heard you say shouldn't be trying. Somebody asked the question, using your example of Pepsi solving climate change, how does Pepsi step away from that goal without being trolled for abandoning a social justice goal?
So I think when I said it, I knew many people in this room will hate that. But that's okay. I think what's problematic about the corporate purpose movement, and by the way, I got a lot of colleagues who love the corporate purpose movement. Like, everybody loves it. I know everybody loves it. I'm sorry to not love it. Why don't I love it? So the first reason not to love it, let me see if I can just get you back here. Can I go backwards? Yeah. So, first, if you think about the world in this fundamental way, which is, if you think this is the problem, that's the principal agent problem. And we need people running companies who are trying to do right by us, the shareholders. That's a really damn hard problem. Okay, so now you're going to have managers seek not to just please shareholders, but to seek to please the world. Okay, that is going to become a mechanism for managers to do whatever the heck they want. Anybody remember Adam Newman of WeWork? You should look at that 10K or that proxy. He was going to change the world. He was filled with purpose. And WeWork was a social phenomenon. And the guy, at the same time, is like ripping off shareholders pretty bad. It can become something that it's not. Second, I think it displaces people's motivations into the corporate sector and away from the political sphere. If you want to fix this stuff, let's get a carbon tax. Let's do the stuff like, and so you're thinking magically. I'm not saying Pepsi isn't a good company. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm saying if you think the actions, the private actions by private actors are going to solve those kinds of problems, there's no reason to believe that. There's no reason to believe that. And then you displace your ambition away from the political sphere onto the commercial sphere, and you convince yourself that by buying Allbirds, you're solving climate change. Or by investing in a B Corp, you're doing something good. And that displacement is problematic. And I know there are a lot of people in this room who hate that, who hate what I just said. But I think that displacement is problematic. And then finally, when did we get to the point where we thought, yeah, corporations are going to solve our social problems? How did we get there? I love corporations. I teach at a business school. I love business. I love it. It's fascinating, and it's fantastic, and it creates value, and it's amazing. But really? We're going to solve the world's problems? It doesn't feel right to me. I don't see any evidence of it. And then it displaces the ambition of people. It confuses people about what is really possible and when it'll happen and how it'll happen. And for all those reasons, I think it's problematic. And then, of course, the backlash, as we've witnessed in the last 6 months, is deep and profound. And then what happens to the corporate purpose movement? I don't know. It turns out not to be quite as durable as people thought. So I don't know. I know people love that stuff. I am more traditional. I love the state. I love the private sector. I love the philanthropic sector. I love them all. They're all great. Do I need a company to do philanthropy? No. I got a philanthropic sector. Do I need a company to solve something that can only be solved by the state? No. I like three things. We have a wonderful, beautiful philanthropic sector. We have a wonderful, beautiful state. We have a wonderful, beautiful corporate sector. And they play. in their domains, and then they butt up against each other. And if anything, the state should be containing the corporate sector and not like, and that's not coming from somebody who hates corporate. I love business, like I really do. I really believe in business. My father and the way we came to this country was through a multinational firm. I love business. I love it all, but it's not everything. And I guess that's the final thing I'll say, which is part of me worries, and this is true for young people, they have displaced so much ambition and meaning onto where they work and how they spend their money, how they invest. So meaning is not coming from the places that I think meaning comes from, which is family and friends and communities. It is coming from, I need my workplace to embody all my values. Wait, what? Why? And why are you so hungry for meaning that you'll only go work at a place that embodies all your values? And you'll only buy shoes from companies that embody all your values? I know so many people think like that. I don't really get it. I'm sorry, I don't really get it. and I think there's lots of meaning, and sometimes you just buy a pair of shoes.
Well, that's going to end up being the final word of the day. We've run out of time. We will make sure, we had lots of questions we didn't get to, and we will make sure they're passed along. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And please, another round of applause for Dr. Desai.